Hi, my name is Shira. I'm a 19-year-old student and soon-to-be author, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my outlining process. If you watched my last video, then you'd know that I'm getting my very first book published later this summer, and that I wrote the first draft of that book in a month and 2 weeks. Crazy, I know. Following that, I've received quite a few questions, both in the comments of that video and on Instagram, about how I outlined and planned for that novel. So a large part of why I was able to write my first draft in such a short amount of time was because I had a really solid outline. So I hope that sharing a bit about my process will help you in some way. Before I get into it, just a quick reminder, everyone's writing process and outlining process is different. What works for me might not necessarily work for you and vice versa. But yeah, I hope that this video can be of some sort of assistance to you. Let's get into it. So an outline is essentially a roadmap for your novel. It provides you with a basic structure of your story before you actually begin writing your first draft. I am very much a plotter when it comes to writing. It's very rare that I go into an idea head first without some sort of planning or outlining or organization whatsoever. But again, whatever works for you. If you find that diving into an idea without too many notes is easier for you, then by all means, totally go for that. But personally, it's not my preferred method of writing. I just really like to have a basic structure of what's going to happen throughout the novel rather than a collection of abstract ideas. So every story is divided into 3 parts: a beginning, a middle, and an ending. The beginning is usually where main characters are introduced as well as the relationships between them. It's also where the inciting incident or the problem usually occurs. The middle consists of the journey, and most of the conflict happens in the middle, I'd say. And of course, the ending is the resolution. That being said, your resolution does not have to be a positive one by any means. It doesn't have to give your characters a happy ending. It doesn't even have to bring their journey full circle. It can end however you please, but the story does have to end somehow. Before I start outlining for a new book project, I do let the ideas sit for quite a while in my head. I find that developing the characters and the plot as a whole a bit more before putting them down on paper makes me feel more sure and decisive and makes my ideas feel more concrete. By the time I do sit down to outline, I usually have multiple scribbled notes and little bits of dialogue just sprinkled sporadically through multiple apps in my laptop. Once I feel like I have enough material and I know exactly what sort of story I want to tell and where I want it to go, then I can start actually structuring the novel. So I usually outline on notes on my laptop. Something about outlining in Word or Pages is a little bit intimidating to me, especially when I feel so new to the story. So yeah, notes, very helpful. At the very top of the document, I list all of my main characters' names, and below each name, I'll list the characters' strengths, weaknesses, and a reason why we should care about them. I know that sounds kind of random, but I promise it really helps when it comes to developing them. It also serves as a constant reminder as I'm outlining of what decisions each person might make and what would seem in or out of character for them to do. Part of what makes reading so engaging and what makes a story so memorable is when you can relate to the person that you're reading about. If your reader can relate and understand a character, then I feel like that makes a book leave a lot stronger of an impression. So on the outline, I bullet list chapters 1 through 20. Your story can be longer than that, of course. I just use that as a general number. So the beginning of every chapter in my outline is usually just like random scribbles of just things that I know I want to happen at a certain time. So it's more of an info dump at first, if I'm being completely honest, but I go back and clean it up later. It's just me getting the very specific details out for certain chapters that I have in mind, whether it be little bits of dialogue for a certain scene or if it's the plot of an entire chapter. After that, I go and fill in the main plot points that I want to happen in every single chapter. If I don't have those specifics of the story yet, then I'll estimate. Let's say if my story is 20 chapters long, then my climax would be chapter 17. I'm sorry if I'm being confusing. I'll include an example towards the end. of like a blank outline. So hopefully that helps. Cool. In every chapter, I write in bold any challenges that might occur plot-wise or personal challenges that a character might have to conquer. So yeah, I kind of do that for the entire novel. To be honest, my outlines are pretty detailed and tedious. I describe everything from the weather on a specific day to what it smells like outside or inside, to whether the ground is wood or marble or if it's grassy outside. It helps so much when you're writing your actual first drafts to have all that information at your disposal. So I like to include basically everything in my outline. In the long run, it's very helpful to have all the specifics down, even though it can be a little bit annoying to have to filter through all of that text. It makes the process of pumping out the first draft very quick and efficient. I'm actually looking at my outline right now for the novel I just wrote, and I'm noticing a bit of a pattern. In every single chapter, at the very top in parentheses, I write the weather as well as what time of day the scene is taking place. That helps me build on the atmosphere and vibe of the chapter. That's a pretty big thing for me personally. If I'm writing about a dark and dreary place, then my writing is going to reflect that and my word choice is going to reflect that. So having that sort of reminder of where and when something is happening is really helpful to me, and maybe will also be helpful to you. I'll give an example. So the first chapter of this book is the prologue, and at the very top in parentheses and in all capital letters, I wrote, "On a winter's night, windy and dreary outside, cold slips in through every window of the estate." That vaguely sets the tone and the vibe of where this is happening and what the atmosphere in the room is going to be like. For the parts of my story that I haven't figured out, like if I have certain bits of dialogue or actions that are happening that I haven't decided what to do with yet, I'll write insert dialogue, get a feel between character A and B's relationship, or in parentheses, how does this person feel about this thing that was said or this thing that they saw. These sorts of simple tabs are easy ways to remind yourself of what to fill in the future, and will also help keep you accountable on character development or certain plot developments that maybe you haven't built on so much while outlining the other parts of your story. I've also heard from a lot of different people that outlining with post-it notes and using a big whiteboard is very helpful. I personally keep all my notes digital. I am horrible when it comes to keeping track of that sort of stuff. I love the aesthetic of having handwritten notes and a bunch of like really pretty journals and notebooks. But the reality of it is I own like 30 and I've only used 3. It's just so much easier to keep everything digital. So yeah, I really hope this was helpful in some shape or form. Outlining for me is the most exciting part of the writing process. It feels like you've written an entire novel without the anxiety of actually writing an entire novel. My outline took me about 3 to 4 weeks to complete. I'm not sure how fast or efficient that is in comparison to others. It was definitely my fastest outline. I usually do take quite a bit longer to complete them. I'm sure the amount of time it'll take also differs between genres. This book was a mystery, so outlining it for me was a bit more straightforward than a high fantasy, for example. But yeah, take your time and don't stress out about it. Writing is fun. It's supposed to be fun. Enjoy it. So yeah, please let me know if you have any other questions, and I'll try my best to help out in any way that I can. I don't know if I would necessarily call this advice. It's just what works for me and what helps me be most productive. But I really do hope that it makes the writing process a little bit easier for you as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll definitely be posting more often, so stay tuned for that. Till then, bye!